So, welcome everybody. This week's Coach to Coach with myself, Kerry Davis-Munro, and my colleague Will Murtha. Good morning, Will.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. Lovely to see you today. So we are tackling, we actually had a look over all of the topics that we've covered, and we've done over 30, nearly 40 topics since we've been doing this. And we were surprised to see that we haven't tackled probably the biggest topic or issue that comes up with our clients over and over and over again. And very much something that which Will and I call the disease of the 21st century. So without wanting to overwhelm you today, certainly without wanting you to overthink any of what we're going to say to you, we are going to tackle these two topics, and we will, as always, be giving you a range of tools that you can use to start immediately thinking about how this sits with you. So, Will, I'm going to hand over to you. I said I was joking and saying I could almost wind you up on this one and just let you go. So I'm going to say to you, what is overwhelm and overthinking? Where do we see it? What is it?
I think a great quote that I pulled out of my book this morning was that we suffer more in imagination than reality. And I think, that was Seneca, a Roman philosopher. And I think so much of our pain is actually self-created. I know we don't want to hear that, but, when you think of overthinking in the head, overwhelm in the body, because you don't feel emotions in the head, the thinking, which is the obsession, which I'm going to talk about now, is in the head. The overwhelm shows up in the body, whether it's the muscles, the tissue, the organs. So, where do we start? Because these two things, as we know, we've talked about this enough, Carrie, and, they are both the Scrooges of our time, overthinking and overwhelm. It comes up in every, in fact, I think it was so obvious that we forgot to do it in one of those 30 plus. It's a bit like playing football and forgetting to teach people how to score goals. It's just kind of
or to bring the ball.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I think, keeping it really sharp. What is overthinking and why do we overthink? We overthink because we've trained the mind. So think of every habit that you've ever done. We overthink because we trained ourselves bad habits of overthinking. But the good thing is that if you've trained yourself, you can train yourself out. Yeah. We're not going to go there now.
It's a bit like, Will, isn't it? When people say, "Oh, I'm just a warrior. I've always been a warrior. Yeah. I'm always going to be a warrior." Well, you will if that's the story you're telling yourself.
If that's a story you tell yourself about yourself, great, self-fulfilling prophecy. So number two, now this is a big one. I want to differentiate between two modes of overthinking. So on the left is the bad overthinking. So that is obsessive, compulsive. It drains you. It takes your energy. You become fixated. You're catastrophizing. You're caught in this spin cycle, carousel of overthinking, a habit loop where it gets you nowhere fast. Procrastination would be a big part of that. Now, procrastination, people think, "Oh, I'm not doing anything." Believe me, under the surface with procrastination, you are overthinking everything without action. That's what procrastination is. Now, that's on the left-hand side. Now, on the right-hand side is the better overthinking. So this is overthinking that helps you get out of problems. It's solutions focused. It's creative, moves you forward. It's imaginative. This kind of overthinking energizes you, it empowers you, and it makes you feel good. Now, what we've got to differentiate is there are two different kinds of overthinking. So this is where, I'll talk about journaling later, but we've got to split them down because they're not the same thing. Another form of overthinking is a complex area. We're not going to go there today, but it's a complex area of we overthink in extreme cases like trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. So we've had a big traumatic event in the past. We over-obsess about all the threats. We make ourselves super vigilant. We're super sensitive. We're on high alert. The emotional system, the nervous system is on high alert. And the final thing I want to make a point about overthinking before handing over is that this was the biggest thing that I was ever told by, people studying neuroscience. And, Joe Dr. Dispenza, who me and you follow avidly. The body doesn't know the difference between what it is imagining and what it is actually experiencing. So if you are thinking about having an argument as opposed to having an argument, or if you're thinking about doing something where you're going to foul or think you're going to foul and you really do foul, guess what? The body creates exactly the same chemistry of fear hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, all the bad stuff, as if you are doing it. And I think we need to really just, that is one of the most biggest fundamental truths that we've got to get our head around, I think.
Yeah, the body is incredible like that. That's why we can hug ourselves and release actually the happy chemicals if we hug ourselves for over 7 seconds.
Brilliant, I love it.
That's the same thing. Why we can actually just laugh, make ourselves laugh. And again, our body doesn't know if that's a natural laugh or we're making ourselves laugh. So you're absolutely right. The body doesn't know, and it creates, we're all just a mass of chemicals. We're either creating really positive chemicals, and don't forget adrenaline can also be a positive chemical, or we're creating chemicals which hold us in a state of inflammation. And that's what's really important, because we do know that inflammation is what leads to dis-ease. And when we're in a state of overwhelm and overthinking, we are in a state of dis-ease. We are not at one with ourselves. We are in a very uncomfortable state. And this can lead to a number of really negative situations. I see with clients, it leads to complete paralysis. It's almost that rabbit caught in the headlights. I don't know where to go because I've just got so much to do. Where do I go? Then we've got obviously anxiety, stress, worry, tension. And as we're saying, some people often say to me, well, I'm just a worrier. We can change that. And it really interesting, your quote. I love that. We suffer more with imagination than reality. Because one of the things I always say to clients is, what's the truth about that? What's the reality about that? Because if we don't tackle this, where we're going on that negative side, we're going to burnout, aren't we? And we need to recognize the emotions, because this is a physical and an emotional state to be in. We need to recognize the emotions that go with this. And they can vary. Obviously, we've got a lot of fear. We're living in a lot of fear when we're in overwhelm and overthinking. But funnily enough, I've got a client recently that that moved to actual anger again with people around her, that I'm doing all of this again. And don't get me wrong, lots of it was a situation if I just give a little bit of background, this client is highly successful, very capable. And we did a lot of work in getting to a point where work was manageable, understanding where she was, noticing, changing lots of behaviors. And then suddenly, because it's a pattern that she has lived in for many years, suddenly she's found herself back where she was. And that's because she's a yes person. I'll take that. I'll do that. I can manage that. She's super capable. And I see this, you and I work with a lot of women predominantly, Will, and I see this with a lot of women. Sometimes we can do things faster. You just feel, okay, well, I'll do that because it stops the pain of somebody else coming to me and me helping. And actually, we don't always help ourselves. So she's ended up in a situation, almost the Cartman drama triangle, where she's supporting people, but now she's really angry because she said yes to so much. She's supporting so much, and she's the one that loses out. So we have to notice that, don't we?
People please, what you're talking about is a people pleaser. If overthinking and overwhelm are the Scrooges of our time, people pleasing and FOPO, fear of other people's opinions, which kind of, has a relationship with people pleasing, it's something we've got to work on. Saying no means no, and we should put boundaries down because, I think the over expectation that we have, Carrie, isn't it, all the time, is that we've either got too many over expectations of ourselves, or we've got too many over expectations of others in the world. And when you've got that, nothing is matching up to your intention or goals of what if your happiness and your serenity and your inner peace is dependent on everyone showing up to your expectations, high expectations, good luck, which is not going to work very well.
I also think, Will, there's something here about, well, I know in the situation I'm talking about, something about esteem and self-esteem. you know, because we see everybody working harder, faster, longer, you know, better, we, to make ourselves feel better, we say yes to stuff and we want to take things on because we want to feel good about ourselves. And sometimes that's behind what's going on here. A little bit of imposter syndrome. Oh my goodness, I need to prove who I am. So I take on more and more and more. I say yes to everything. And where do I end up? So I guess one of the things we're saying is let's understand what's behind it. Look at where you've come from. Is this a theme? Is it a pattern? You know, when did this start? Sometimes it's a process that we need to consciously unpack to make the changes stick, don't we?
Patterns are interesting. You know, what you just said is that we've got to notice what's working for us and what's not working for us. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? You know, when we're in a good space and the mind fog isn't up and we're in a good emotional balance, harmony, grounded state, we can see all this. We can see for 1,000 miles. We can see blue sky. But when we're in a frantic, frenzied kind of hyper sensitive state, it's like the fog's come up and we can't even see common sense. And the common sense says that we need to pull back. If we're going to deal with overthinking and overwhelm, we can't change anything unless we allow the time and the mind space to see it. So, you know, coming back to what you said about patterns, we can't change a pattern of behavior until we notice that it's not working for us anymore. And I think that's where we've got to be really, you know, we've really got to pay attention to where, you know, we love that statement, don't we? Both of us, you know, where attention goes, energy flows. And if that's one thing you take away today, you know, where you focus your attention and concentration, where you put it, your energy, which remember is emotion, will flow. So where are you going to decide to place your mind energy? Are you going to go left, which I'm always saying is the negative side, which is, you know, oh, I can't do that, or what's wrong with my life, or worst case scenario, you know, catastrophizing, or you're going to go on the right road, which is, yeah, I've got a can-do attitude. What is right in my life? Gratitude, exercise would be one of them, you know. Best case scenario. Now, where you decide, I know a lot of people don't realize this, but where you place your attention on the left road, negative, or the right road, positive, is up to you. And here's the stunning sort of truth that I've learned over these last 20 years, is that if we deal with our overthinking, instantly, overnight, 80 to 90% of our overwhelm, which is emotions in the body, will go. And why does it go? Because, you know, the fuel pipe for the engine is overthinking. That is the fuel. And if you cut the fuel pipe, your overwhelm is not anywhere. Don't get me wrong, with particularly things like, you know, post-traumatic stress and that, it's hard baked into your wiring. You know, you've got other things which we're not going to talk about today. It's a big, complex area, and too big for us to go. But you know, most of our overthinking is down to us. It's not the mind just doing its thing. We have got control. And the minute we start to realize that we've got the wheel and we're not on the back seat of the taxi being hurtled around a city, that's where we start to be empowered.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say, you know, it's about the thoughts. If we get that under control, and then it will affect, you know, the body and everything else, because it also works the other way around. One of the biggest ways that I work with clients is to use the body, to use our breath, to understand that we come back to our anchors of really good food, getting our water in. You know, one of the things that people always say to me in overwhelm is, and clearly over time, people say to me, if I say the top 3 things that are working for you, they say the fact that I am getting my water in, I'm finally getting my 3 liters of water in. I know it works for me. And yet they also know that it's almost the first thing to go. But it has a huge effect on the brain and the way that we manage our thoughts, and a direct impact upon overthinking. So I come back to getting the anchors in always. Your good sleep, your good food, your exercise, and your breath. Because the body and certainly the heart and the gut interact far more with our head than our head does with our gut. We all think we're this head on legs, don't we, Will? But you know, to get out of the head, we actually have to use our body to be able to shift us.
You can't think, Einstein said it, didn't he? You know, simplistically, you can't think your way out of a problem with the same mindset that
level
got
of
you into the
thinking
problem.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so you've got to understand that getting the emotion out of the body is running, exercise, yoga, tai chi, qigong, walking the dog, going swimming, in a river first thing in the morning. Whatever your thing is, you have to get moving, because once emotion's stuck in the body through overwhelm, you will tell yourself, I can't go away from the desk. I've got too many projects to do. My to-do list is far too much.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we know that, you disappeared there. I thought, where's she gone? And we know that is the first step that we can help us to shake the emotion out of the body.
Yeah, and I just put up a little slide here because this is something that I often do with people. I say, "Where are you living?" One of the places I say is, in terms of your emotions, where are you living? Are you living in the left-hand side here, which is high cortisol? We're living in high energy emotions, all depleting in fear, worry,
Yeah.
distress, or are we down the bottom where we're a bit dejected, low submission? Because where we want to live, and this is a bit like your left and right with the overthinking, or the creative thinking or negative thinking, over here is where we want to live. And if I'll get a client to take this away, just draw a cross on a piece of paper and say, every time you notice something happens and it triggers an emotion, put a cross anywhere on this grid and put a little key down the bottom. Nothing onerous. Put X1 so and so called. Yeah. Understand what's triggering you, understand where your emotions are, and understanding where you're living. And that's a great tool for you to become aware of your emotions. Am I in depletion, or am I renewing myself? Another great thing that I always say to clients is understand that's, Stephen Covey. We both love a bit of Covey. Take everything that you did in a day, download it onto your page. And sometimes, it's nice to have a structure to your journaling, and understand. Say to them, get a red pen, highlight all the things that you did that were reactive and that were, urgent. And then get a blue pen and highlight all the stuff that was important. If you've got the urgent, reactive things that are, outweighing the important, you're in trouble. We need to be proactively controlling where our day goes and what we're managing. So that might be the top sort of 2 things that I would get people to start looking at. And obviously coming back to your anchors and understand what fills you up, takes you to the right hand side with renewing emotions. Another little thing, line down the middle of the page, left hand side, everything that fills me up, everything that puts me back and gets me into
Empowers
flow.
me.
Right hand side, everything that depletes me at the moment, everything that's taking me down. We have to notice it. And notice the language you are using. We've done a whole session on language. Language is so important. Someone said to me recently, I'm just not very good at life. And you think, oh my goodness me, if you're telling yourself, of course, self-fulfilling prophecy, you're not going to be very good at life, for sure.
Bless. Overwhelmed, really, I'll give you 3 or 4 things why people are overwhelmed. I'm not going to go into them because we haven't got the time. But, why are we overwhelmed? We're British a lot of the time. And we're holding emotions in the body because we don't express the emotion. Good emotions, no problem. We express them at the time they arise. Bad, negative feeling, bad emotions, we hold on to. We just can't let go of them. How many people go a lifetime without being able to let go of shame and guilt and remorse and regret? I should have done that. That person done that to me. I was a victim. That's all overwhelmed because it's trapped energy. We avoid pain. We know we're pain avoiding pleasure seekers. So that is a big one. We can't say no to people, classic people pleaser, like you said just now. We sometimes lack the courage, or we've got FOMO and FOPO going on. All of those are big things that we know that lead to overwhelm, which is basically too much emotion, unexpressed, unexplored, unprocessed in the body.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I did want to say is, we see a lot people in overwhelm just because, as we say, this is the way that most people live. But, coming back to another client, overwhelmed in a very different way. She's in a very toxic relationship that she's trying to move out of. That's enough to be dealing with. But on top of that, her mother's just been diagnosed with a very fast moving Alzheimer's. She's dealing with massive issues with workload. She's the main earner. This is real overwhelm, isn't it, Will? That's like, we've really got to take it, and we do, week by week, with just the one thing that I can deal with this week, because it's too much to be dealing with 3 giant ogre-sized issues every day. You're like Atlas carrying this stuff around on your back. So let's be really clear. How do I deal with it physically? What do I need to do? How do I deal with it mentally? It's a different kind of overwhelm, isn't it? Those sorts of situations.
I've got a little quote just to kind of wind it up, which is one that Jane gave me, which is, worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It may give you something to do, but it gets you absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, Will, we have aimed to keep to 20 minutes today because we know what we're like and we didn't want to overwhelm people. Do get in touch with us. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you in terms of overwhelm? How do you deal with it? Do you notice? What do you use to wake you up and to notice? Noticing is the first part of behavioural change. So drop us a message, drop us a DM. If there's a topic you want us to cover, then we'd love to hear from you as well. Will, thank you so much for this morning. We've got it to 21. That's a sort of record for us.
Well done. And we'll see you next week on another topic.
Yeah, we'll see you next week for Wellbeing Wednesday. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Take care.